In late 2018, I played Dark Souls for the first time. Okay, wait a second. While I'm talking right now, you should probably, I don't know, look at something that's relevant. So here, look at that. Okay, so as I was saying, the first time I played Dark Souls was in 2018. I played about 50% of the game before finally committing to the opinion that I never wanted to acknowledge. I hate this game. I talked with a friend of mine who absolutely loves Dark Souls, and I told him how much I hate the slow combat and the methodical gameplay, and he said, that's why I love it. It's no secret that games appeal to different audiences, but what made me feel really weird about Dark Souls was when I tried figuring out what about the game design turned me off. Since I usually play games that fit my taste, it's easy to figure out when they're not designed well. Because I know what to expect, bad design is obvious. But it's much harder to figure out when the game doesn't fit my taste. Whether the game is designed well or not, I still don't enjoy it. It's like trying to judge how fresh coffee is when you hate coffee. Which is impossible, that nobody hates coffee. Welcome to DevBrew. This is where indie game developers can send their games and I do my best to provide feedback on their game design. Only today we're talking about a genre that I don't understand and I don't like. I wish I could set aside my biases and kind of go into this game design purely objectively, but I don't think that's possible. So what I'm gonna do instead is talk about how a player like me would approach a game like this. And if you want to support the channel, thank you so much. There's a Patreon link in the description. Very good. And nighttime. Coffee and nighttime. Great. Great mix. I'm gonna be up for days. Run for Cover is a turn-based strategy game where you lead two hired guns into a secret location to bring down a corrupt government weapons operation. We're in a pretty unique situation here. I've only played like 3 strategy games in my life. I mean, I've played strategy board games, I suppose, like Risk and all that, but the computer games that I've played has only been like Civilization, Command and Conquer, and I guess chess. And I don't typically play strategy games because they're too stressful for me. They're really tedious and really stressful, except for chess. I love chess. I'm much more fond of action games or games that have much faster paced decision making. Before we begin, I gotta give huge thanks to this guy for submitting his game, Run for Cover. It can feel really bad when someone just dissects your creation, but we're doing this to learn, so thank you so much for putting Run for Cover in a vulnerable spot. The first thing that happens when you start the game is this screen. Your team enters from the left side and you're ready to begin. The layout is randomized, so mine may look different from yours. First, let's take a look at what the gameplay looks like.
On my way.
What's the plan? On my way. You sure? Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
I'm ready. Moving into position.
Ready. This better be good.
What's the plan? Right away. Moving out.
Moving out?
Sir? I'm on it.
Roger that. On my way.
Ready.
What's the plan?
Moving out. Right away.
So the first thing that I want to acknowledge is how fast the enemy takes their turn after I finish my turn. Because of the nature of being turn-based, players are forced to wait certain times. Many people who play this genre regularly don't like having to wait for the computer to finish, before they can play again, so speeding up the animation is something that's not only appreciated, but expected. And I'm aware that this is going to sound really dumb, but this is just how I felt. It sounds kind of silly, but if you imagine you're playing something like chess with another person, and right after you finish your move, without a second thought, your opponent immediately plays their next move. That kind of immediate behavior makes it seem as if they were expecting you to make that move. Like you were really easy to read, like that was a really stupid move that you made. And that's the feeling that I get every turn in this game. Now, yes, I understand it's code and it's not thinking ill of me, but I can't help it. It's just the way it feels. Because of my context of action games, I would usually approach enemies with this action kind of mindset. When I went to shoot this enemy, I walked up here instead of here. It was a weird decision. My percentage would have been much higher here, so why didn't I go that way? Well, because of my action mindset. I was thinking if I approach from the side, then maybe he won't be able to hit me as well, which makes sense for an action game, but it doesn't make any sense for a strategy game. You can see here that I moved my team one by one. I alternated between the first and the second. I wasn't doing this intentionally. While in this action mindset, I imagined that I only had one turn per person. That's just how I automatically quantified the turns. But the turns are actually broken up into 2 action units per person, which I can use for a variety of things, including movement. But it didn't matter. I kept finding myself alternating throughout the whole game, which sometimes puts me in bad places. Following the objective marker here, I made sure to put my team behind some crates for safety. I just imagined they'd be safe behind some crates, I guess. The objective here is to destroy this truck. When I shot the truck, more enemies came from the left side of the screen, which I heard in my headphones, so I checked that side and I saw them, but during that moment, other enemies approached me from the right and shot me through my cover. At this moment, I felt like there was so much happening. So again, because of my mindset, because of this action mindset that I had, I'm thinking when danger is approaching, I have to react. So when someone shoots, my instinct is to try to do something about it, not to sit there and have them keep shooting me until they're finished. So because of this mindset, I was never ready for these situations, and so when they came up over and over and over, I kept getting really stressed, and it made me want to stop the game so I could relieve the stress. While in cover, I didn't really understand how I got shot. And this is something I didn't figure out for a long time. I understand now that the cover system lowers your chance of being shot, but doesn't completely eliminate it, which is completely fair and really interesting in a strategy-based shooter. But because these things were never in my mind, I never understood why I was able to be shot at all. So imagine this. Ideally, when someone plays chess for the first time, they don't go in without knowing how the game works. They need to know things like the opening pawn move, attacking diagonally, when they can castle, what the difference is between stalemate and checkmate. These are all things that the player should be aware of so that they can formulate strategy. Without that knowledge, they're put at a disadvantage. The point that I'm making here is that people who play Run for Cover are the types of people who already know the strategy game language. They know that getting shot through cover is based on percentage. They know what an evasion buff means. They know how to form their strategies based on prior knowledge. Originally, I wasn't going to do this episode at all, because while I was playing this game, I didn't understand it, and yet it was perfectly understandable to its target audience. On the Steam page for this game, there's nothing but positive reviews, all of them saying how fun the game is, how addictive it was, so it was obvious to me that I didn't understand the mindset that they had. They obviously didn't feel stressed at the moments that I did, or have any conflicts understanding the mechanics. Now, there are ways that you can broaden your audience for this game to get players like me to be really interested in its gameplay, and you don't have to change the mechanics at all, you just have to teach the players how to think. You could create a tutorial level of sorts that not only explains how the game works, but explains how to think about the game. I imagine the level being something like the training mode from Super Smash Bros. In that mode, there's a ton of statistics all across the screen that shows things that people may not know when they're playing the game. Things like diminishing damage of a repeated attack, or attacks that have certain kinds of effects, like meteor smashes. Your training level could create a place where the player feels safe enough to experiment and formulate expectations while they're doing so. It would have to bring certain things to the surface though, like the calculations that are being done for how far the enemy can walk and what kind of weapons they have or how much damage they can deal. You would have to show how the cover system works with the percentages, show what kinds of weapons exist, what kinds I can use, how many action points a move takes when a move doesn't deplete action points, possible upgrades, the medkits, and what it takes to revive your partner, even suggestions on how to strategize and when to survey your environment. And each of these things would need to be introduced step by step before giving the player a test of sorts to make sure the player understands what is happening. For example, I'd make a small area where the goal is to use cover to get past an enemy. The player has no weapon and must take damage, but they can see that the damage is limited when they use cover, and the only way forward is to use cover and get to the goal without dying. I believe a lot of little challenges like that would help the player get into the mindset that you want them to be at, and it would turn us into fans of the game, and it might even turn us to fans of the genre. I did actually play this game to completion. There were times that I did actually use strategy, believe it or not. But this was only after I played the game for hours trying to reprogram the way I thought. And I want to reiterate that the teaching here was not the problem. Like, I knew exactly what to do in the game, but it was the way I thought about it that was really hard. The game is designed great. There is a lot of really good graphic design. The interface is immaculate. There is nothing that's pulling me away from the game other than the genre itself. So I just need a different mindset to play it. Game design is about creating the experience that you want. And in that regard, this game is quite perfect. When I talked with its creator in the Games Over Coffee Discord, link in description, I found that he wanted to create a game that has both elements of FTL and XCOM, and he accomplished it. The game does what it should. That is great game design. But if you wanted to break out of the niche audience, look into why players don't like certain games, then use that information to create something more transcendent. So I hope what we talked about here was helpful, at least in some way. I had a really hard time trying to make this episode, but thanks to this game, it kind of woke me up in trying to figure out how to move forward with the whole series. So thank you for that. This is Games Over Coffee. My name is Devon, and thank you so much for watching. Hey, Games Over Coffee. Devon here. I always use dark roast for cold brew, for making cold brew. This is, what is this? Pete's Major Dickinson's dark roast. Let it brew for 24 hours in the fridge. Really good. Talk about how a player like me approaches these kinds of games. And we'll see what happens with that. Not like I don't know, because I already wrote a 9-page script on it.